strove to understand her labyrinthine philosophy, the source of her mysterious pain. Everything about her was dark and shrouded, even the way she spoke and the acts she required of me. It took years for me to understand the simple fact that I could never understand Nocturnal. Her mystery was as essential to her as savagery was to Boethia, or treachery was to Molag Bal. To understand Nocturnal is to negate her, to pull back the curtains cloaking her realm of darkness. As much as I loved her, I recognized the futility of unraveling her enigmas. A quote from Sigillah Parate. Nocturnal, the Night Mistress, Lady Luck, and known as Noctra to the Khajiit, among other names, is a Daedric prince whose sphere is night, shadows, and darkness. She is often worshipped by those who value the shadows, such as thieves and likely vampires. She is usually accompanied by 2 pitch-black sentient ravens, who rest on her shoulders or wrists. Members of the Thieves Guild often phrase Shadow Haiju to one another, which is a phrase that also appears in Daedric script on the Grey Cowl of Nocturnal, a Daedric artifact of hers which truly represents her mystery and darkness. Nocturnal's day of summoning is on the 3rd of Heartfire. Azura has been referenced to be Nocturnal's sister, although it is not known if this is in the literal sense or in the metaphorical sense. Depictions of Nocturnal are usually mysterious and nondescript women, accompanied by darkness and shadow, usually wearing a dark cloak of sorts, arms spread with 2 sentient ravens who rest on her shoulders and or wrists. Nocturnal states she is a facet of the Void of Oblivion itself, and often holds names such as Mother of the Night or Night Mistress. She has a peculiar and mysterious nature, such that mortals cannot understand fully, as she is the embodiment of mystery, shadow, and the night. Her worshippers are usually those who value darkness and stealth, such as assassins, thieves, vampires, and spies. Despite being a Daedric prince, Nocturnal does not present her darkness and mystery in the form of evil, rather an impartial and unaligned nature, which is why assassins, while they value shadow and or stealth, and may be inclined to worship Nocturnal, typically worship the more violent deities such as Molag Bal, Mephala, and Sithis if they are aligned with the Dark Brotherhood. Thieves, if they are partnered with the Thieves Guild, are typically prohibited from utilizing violence to their advantage, and utilize stealth and shadows to their advantage instead, making Nocturnal a much more likely deity of worship. Carlia, a Nightingale, quotes Nocturnal as being a scolding mother who pushes her child to do better, meaning Nocturnal likely cares about mortals and her worshippers, unlike many of the other Daedric princes. Although Nocturnal has a fairly large following in terms of the Daedric princes, she doesn't have any kind of organized priesthood. There are some who refer to being a priest of Nocturnal, although Nocturnal does not pay much favor or attention to them. She seems to have no real interest in worship. A temple of Nocturnal does exist called the Twilight Sepulchre, located in Skyrim, though this was built around the portal known as the Ebonmere, the portal to Nocturnal's plane of oblivion known as the Evergloam. Supposedly, Nocturnal is the source of a thief's luck, which flows from the Ebonmere and plays a heavy role in the lives of any who use the shadows to do their work, though no one knows what the exact price is that is paid in return. Even without an organized priesthood, there are a group of dedicated mortal servants known as the Nightingales. The Nightingales, or otherwise known as the Nightingale Trinity, are a trio of incredibly skilled thieves. They serve Nocturnal candidly. Nocturnal gives them the powers of shadow, subterfuge, and strife in trade of their services. Once a Nightingale enters service for Nocturnal, they are bound for life, and even in death, to bring their service to this Daedric prince. Their duty is to guide the Twilight Sepulchre and her realm until Nocturnal dismisses them from her service, in the sense that they have fulfilled their duty. Nightingales are typically chosen from the highest-ranking members of the Thieves Guild. Although the Thieves Guild doesn't put their primary focus on Nocturnal, nor does each member worship her, and most guild members are unaware of the Nightingale's existence, or even know much about Nocturnal herself. The Nightingales, however, can greatly influence the way the guild operates or their success. Nightingales are also told to have first coined the phrase, "Shadow hide you," a common saying amongst the members of the Thieves Guild. Those who become a Nightingale must swear under the oath. The skeleton key must remain at the Twilight Sepulchre, the temple of Nocturnal, which must be protected from all threats, even in death, until Nocturnal accepts the spirit of a Nightingale enter the Evergloam, her plane of Oblivion. In return of this oath, Nightingales are given many abilities from Nocturnal herself, and they can use these abilities however they please, and how they see fit for in life. This oath is a Daedric exchange of sorts, except unlike most Daedric princes, this transaction is purely from a business standpoint, and not in an incredibly ill-mannered way or disadvantageous way to the mortal involved. This exchange benefits each participant. Some Nightingales who take the oath are not required to worship Nocturnal, but still respect her as the matron of thieves. The origins of the Nightingales and their organization is not known. The most infamous Nightingale in history was that of Yeagar Tharn, and first appeared as a Nightingale around the Third Era 383. Although Nightingales of modern times deny him as a member of the Nightingales, claiming that the true member was a Dunmer named Draven Indoril, who was indeed hired by Tharn to steal the Staff of Chaos, the truth was torn askew as to avoid political discrepancies. There was also a supposed child who was born of Draven Indoril and a Baron Zaya, who also birthed a child who would also go on to become a Nightingale herself. The Nightingales are based in Nightingale Hall. One of the most recent embodiments of the Nightingales was Mercer Frey, Carlia, and Gallus Desidenius, the Thieves Guild master at the time. It is commonly believed that the Nightingales do not exist, and were a concept developed as a fear tactic in order to get footpads and new members into doing what they are commanded to do from the guild. In the Fourth Era, 201, the last Dragonborn was also told to have joined the Nightingales. According to the book titled Nightingales, Fact or Fiction, a corpse had been discovered sometime in the Third Era, bearing peculiar black armor with an insignia on it that displayed a bird supporting a moon on its wings. Since this discovery, it has been circulated that the Nightingales did in fact exist among the general populace. Very little is known of the Nightingales prior to the return of Alduin in the Fourth Era, although a Dunmer named Lorthus was also suspected of being a Nightingale, and was also executed for committing homicide. Agents are specific powers gifted personally from Nocturnal to her Nightingales. There are 3 known agents. Each possess a grand power that can only be used once in a day. To change to a different agent, one must traverse to the Twilight Sepulchre, and again can only do this once a day. The Agent of Stealth grants the user the power of expert infiltration. They can use the darkness to their will to camouflage themselves to the greatest extent. They are gifted a power called Shadow Cloak of Nocturnal, which turns the user invisible whilst they are sneaking. Unfortunately, this effect will dissipate upon any kind of interaction. The Agent of Subterfuge uses the power of darkness to blur others' thoughts and awareness, causing any targets within range to become suddenly hostile and attack anything in sight. Nightingales can use this effect greatly to take advantage of chaos and disappear out of sight. Lastly, the Agent of Strife creates a magical rope-like effect to the Nightingale's enemies, allowing them to absorb health from this magical link, and gives the user the drained health. Other primary worshippers of Nocturnal are typically female magic-using worshippers known as witches. A coven known as Purloined Shadows is told to be one of Nocturnal's primary sect of worshippers, other than Nightingales or members of the Thieves Guild. Even though Nocturnal is typically indifferent towards her worshippers or other forms of worship, Nocturnal is said to smile upon this cult as they praise and sing of her grand mysteriousness. Other minions or worshippers of Nocturnal are those such as the Whispering Shadows cult and many different beings known as shadow creatures, remarkably the shadow of Sotha Sil, who would covertly annex the actual Sotha Sil. Within the Cogidum Centralis, Nocturnal had made her appearance after the shadow had been slain. She manifested as a large aura of purple darkness, before she was therefore exiled by TESIII. Nocturnal's most infamous artifact is that of the Grey Cowl of Nocturnal. This headwear is able to completely and efficiently mask the wearer's identity from mortal consciousness. This even includes means of scrying, magic, and professional types of identification of any kind. The power of this artifact is so immense that individuals who have witnessed the bearer put on this cowl would not be able to remember anything about its user, let alone their name, and even once the cowl is removed, they will still be clueless as to this individual's identity. Those who interact with the cowl's bearer have an incredibly difficult time remembering them, or even ever interacting with them. Even removing this cowl in public view bears no effect on their notoriety or prior reputation. This cowl is made of some sort of dark leather, and completely obscures the face of whosoever wears it. Many thieves throughout history believe it is a great feat of sorts to be able to steal from the matron of thieves herself, Nocturnal, and so many have attempted throughout the eras to steal things from her, notably the cloak she wears and the grey cowl. Many stories have arisen surrounding the supposed and attempted thefts of Nocturnal's possessions. There is a story that exists in which her cloak was supposedly stolen, although it is most likely a tall tale and nothing but fiction. There are multiple tales alluding to the cowl getting stolen, however, and unlike the cloak, the cowl is known to have been stolen at some point in time. Nocturnal had placed a curse on the artifact, however. Whosoever wears it shall be lost in the shadows. His true nature shall be unknown to all who meet him. His identity shall be struck from all records and histories. Memory will hide in the shadows, refusing to record the name of the owner to any who meet him. He shall be known by the cowl and only by the cowl. Even though this curse was very powerful and placed on it by the will of a Daedric prince, with use of an outer scroll, this curse was broken as history was rewritten. The cowl was supposedly robbed during the Third Era by the master of the Thieves Guild at the time, and the first master of the Thieves Guild at that, Emer Deriloth. This robbery of the Grey Cowl was the one that sparked the curse that was laid on it, beginning the infamous figure known as the Grey Fox. The cowl had also become famous for a ballad called Song of Hormir. In the song, Nocturnal was deceived by Hormir in an attempt to rescue his companion Darfang. Nocturnal had traded the soul of Darfang for the servitude of Hormir. Hormir's servitude was to assist her followers in dividing the kingdom of Aelfindor. However, in the end, it was her followers that ended up divided rather than the kingdom. In this time, the Grey Cowl was pilfered by Hormir. Nocturnal was compelled to release Hormir's soul because of this, and in the end gained nothing from this. The Grey Cowl has a series of letters in Daedric script on it, and says Shadow hide you. However, the Daedric letter Yakem in the word you is not displayed in the phrase, so it actually says this. Although it is not known why the Daedric letter Yakem has been omitted, this phrase, Shadow hide you, has become a favorite phrase and code of sorts among thieves. Some use this phrase as a nod to Nocturnal, and others may use it in a way of wishful thieving. The Nightingales have stated that the phrase is in reference to their service after death, as their souls traverse the planes to the Evergloam, and serve her in her plane of Oblivion. The Office of the Unseeing Eye, which is a branching sect of the cult of the Ancestor Moth, greatly desired to acquire the Grey Cowl to see if the curse on it did indeed exist, and wished to research it on how to remove it. Since Emer Deriloth's theft of the Grey Cowl, it was passed down from guildmaster to guildmaster in the Cyrodiilic branch of the Thieves Guild. The guildmasters had utilized the power of the Grey Cowl to mask their true identity and use it to their advantage. They had lost their true identities and only became known as the bearer of the cowl. Tales and stories had arose of the mysterious user of the Grey Cowl, stories telling of how they are an immortal being and hero to the beggars and poor of Cyrodiil, although this figure was despised among the Imperial Watch and upper class. The curse on the cowl was shattered in the Third Era 433, when the former Count Corvus Umbranox, the current Grey Fox of the time, had organized a master plan for the theft of an Elder Scroll from the Imperial Palace. With the success of this heist, Umbernox had utilized the Elder Scroll to rewrite history and remove the curse on the cowl that was placed on it by Nocturnal. With the curse removed, the guildmasters were able to work openly, and the Thieves Guild had prospered because of this. Umbernox had regained his position as Count of Anvil with his reclaimed identity. The cowl was passed on to a new guildmaster, which is believed to have been the champion of Cyrodiil. Even without the curse, the cowl did remain to hold the power to mask the identity of its bearer, without erasing their name from history. The cowl also remained as a figurehead to the infamous Grey Fox. Even into the Fourth Era, the Grey Fox still remains a legendary character among thieves. The Skeleton Key, another artifact of Nocturnal, is a key or sometimes a lockpick that has the ability to penetrate any lock. No matter how difficult or complex the lock is, in key form it can open any door or lock, regardless of whether the skeleton key fits or not. In lockpick form, it can pick any lock without ever having the risk of breaking. The first person known to have ever been in possession of the skeleton key was a mysterious thief only known as Aravan. Many years later, the Eternal Champion had discovered a map locating the skeleton key. However, it is not known if this was in Valenwood or in the Somerset Isles, as reports vary. Either way, utilizing this map, the Eternal Champion had found the skeleton key. Sometime in the Third Era, 397, the hero of Azura's Crossing had discovered the key in a chest in the Citadel of Broken Wing. The skeleton key, like many Daedric artifacts, never stays in an individual's hands too long, let alone one place. This artifact is known to travel many different locations and have been in the hands of many different individuals, and is a prized possession to be had by thieves. After the key mysteriously teleports, it hides itself in incredibly difficult or inaccessible places. Aravan had made a long list of various and likely hidden places in which the key might transport to. The skeleton key may very well be one of the most powerful Daedric artifacts known, as it holds the ability to overcome any barrier or obstacle, regardless of its complexity or difficulty, as displayed as it bears no trouble opening a simple portal to Oblivion, which otherwise could only be accessible with powerful magic or know-how. It is unknown what other possibilities the skeleton key has access of unlocking. In the middle of the Second Era, the skeleton key had been in the possession of Sothasil. Sothasil kept the key in his Clockwork City. After Nocturnal had utilized the key to take over Clockwork City, Sothasil had gifted the key to Divaith Fear to keep the artifact safe. Before the cataclysmic events of the Warp in the West, an Agent of the Blades was requested by Nocturnal to kill a mage. In doing so, the agent was gifted the skeleton key by one of Nocturnal's worshippers. The key had also come into possession of Gentleman Jim Stacy, who was the leader of the Thieves Guild in Vardenfell. The key made its way to the hands of the Nerevarine in the Third Era 427, although it is not exactly known how the key had gotten into the possession of the Nerevarine. Some tell of the Nerevarine using brute force, while others say it was gifted to the Nerevarine by Jim after they had killed the master of the Vivec City's Fighters Guild. In the Third Era, 433, a relic known as the Eye of Nocturnal had been robbed from the Shrine of Nocturnal in Cyrodiil. Nocturnal had requested the champion of Cyrodiil to recover this artifact. The ones responsible for stealing the artifact were an Argonian couple who had hid the artifact in a flooded cave. The champion of Cyrodiil discovered this and returned the Eye of Nocturnal to her shrine, and in return was gifted the skeleton key. In the Fourth Era, 201, the Thieves Guild of Riften was known to have been in possession of this artifact, specifically its guildmaster, Mercer Frey. After Mercer, who had happened to be a Nightingale at the time, although corrupted, had stolen the skeleton key from the Ebonmere sometime before the Fourth Era, 201. Mercer had utilized this key for personal gain, and after a long-term vacancy of the skeleton key from the Ebonmere, since the skeleton key is required to be at the Twilight Sepulchre's portal to the Evergloam, in which Nocturnal's supposed thief luck magic bleeds out of, the luck of the Thieves Guild had run dry. During this time, it is discovered that the skeleton key doesn't only just unlock any door or lock, it also holds the ability to unlock metaphysical things, such as hidden mortal potential. Under the great statue of Erkingthand, Mercer had been confronted by the Nightingales and was killed. The skeleton key was returned to the portal, restoring the Thieves Guild to its former glory. The skeleton key's ultimate purpose is to hold open the portal called the Ebonmere, the portal in the Twilight Sepulchre in Skyrim that leads to Nocturnal's plane of Oblivion, the Evergloam. The Nightingales are meant to act as guardians of the key, the Twilight Sepulchre, as well as her plane of Oblivion. However, it is known that Nocturnal allows for the key to go missing or reside in mortal hands, but it is not known what motives Nocturnal has behind this. There is yet another lesser-known artifact of Nocturnal's that also exists, known as the Bow of Shadows, told to be forged by Nocturnal herself. This bow had come into the possession of an archer named Rayles Guile. Rayles was gifted the bow from Nocturnal after a secret mission that had gone awry. Rayles had used the bow to take down many of his foes. However, the bow had eventually gone missing. The Bow of Shadows holds the power to turn its user invisible and increase their movement speed. Many sightings of the bow have been reported throughout history. A Dunmerry assassin named Drum in the Second Era is told to have been in possession of this bow. It can be assumed that Drum had utilized this bow during the Battle of Hunding Bay, in which he pierced Prince Ator with a poisoned arrow, killing the prince. It is also known that Drum had utilized the bow during the rebellion that occurred in Stros Mackay, organized by the Restless League. Drum had used this bow in the clash between him and Cyrus the Redguard. Near the closure of the Third Era, a necromancer named Gorys the Maggot King had also come into possession of this bow. In the Third Era, 427, the Nerevarine had slain Gorys and his assistant in the Venom Ancestral Tomb, which Gorys had used as his lair of sorts. The Nerevarine had claimed this bow during this time. Later that year, it is also believed that the bow had eventually come into the possession of Torasa Aram, who put the bow on display in her Museum of Artifacts in Mournhold. It is not known where the bow resides currently. Nocturnal's plane of Oblivion is known as the Evergloam. Her realm is a mysterious and forested plane. It holds perpetual twilight and darkness, known as the Cradle of Shadow. The Evergloam is a large plane, but holds many different pocket realms within the larger plane. Two examples of pocket realms are Shade Perilous and Crow's Wood. These pocket realms are believed to be in constant orbit and movement, and are distinguished differently by each mortal who encounters this plane. The Ebonmere is the portal to Nocturnal's plane that acts as her conduit on Tamriel. The Twilight Sepulchre was constructed around this portal in Skyrim, and this portal is held open simply by the skeleton key. But across history, this key has been displaced and in the hands of many throughout Tamriel. Since Nightingales act as the guardian of the Ebonmere and the Twilight Sepulchre, when a Nightingale dies, their soul fuses with the shadows. As long as the portal to the Evergloam is open, the souls of deceased Nightingales can walk with the shadows and bring luck to thieves across Tamriel. Nightingales blessed by Nocturnal are told to drink from the Ebonmere and gain powers from her. The Shade Perilous is a pocket realm in the Evergloam, and this pocket realm is highly desired by many Daedric clans because of the intensity of what is known as Darkling mana present in this realm. During the Imperial Simulacrum, the armies of Mehrunes Dagon had invaded the Battlespire and had taken this pocket realm for themselves. Mehrunes Dagon's apprentices, Phaedra Shardai and Sivlai Moath, had become impertinent, and instead of taking passage to the realm by diplomacy, they took it by force. The dark seducers that had resided in the realm had turned against the lieutenant of Nocturnal, JCL Morgan, along with the second in command, Deianira Catrice, and had claimed this realm for Dagon. The Shade Perilous had become a plane for Flame and Frost Atronachs to roam, although the two clans had still fought over rulership. Eventually, an apprentice battle mage from the Battle Spire had assisted in the liberation of Shade Perilous, but it is not known if the original owners had regained control over it or not. It is possible that Dagon's forces had foregone their hold over the plane after a Daedra lord named Imago Storm had gained control after Dagon had been banished. Another known pocket realm of Nocturnal is the eerie realm known as the Crow's Wood. This plane is large and consists of a dark and bizarre forested landscape. Although it is considered a poor misrepresentation of Tamriel's forests, this realm is populated by an ancient court of sentient crows, named the Blackfeather Court. The Blackfeather Court views themselves as the lords of the realm. Others who inhabit this realm are wolves, ghosts, spiders, wisp mothers, giant bats, bears, wisps, and soul wraiths. At one point in time, this realm was presided over by a powerful soul wraith named Ghislaine, although they were banished for unknown reasons. After this, a hagraven known only as the Crow Mother now acts as the figurehead of Blackfeather Court. Sometime during the Second Era, a Dunmerry mage named Relantaril Oran, who was a member of the Mages Guild, had happened himself upon the Crowswood after doing research for forgotten and ancient spells. Relantaril had crafted a chest that opened a portal to this realm. He tucked this chest away in a cave near the city of Davon's Watch, located in Morrowind. Relantaril desired to gain respect from the Crow Mother by telling her of his love for her. The Crow Mother did not comply with this love, and locked him away in her tower. Relantaril's son, Telbaril, had entered this plane in search of his father sometime later in the Second Era 582. Other adventurers who held interest in the chest also had ventured forth into the Crowswood. Telbaril sought out aid to help find his missing father. However, it is unknown if the Crow Mother or Relantaril survived the oncoming events of the search. Ghislaine had made the return by being summoned back to this realm, but was destroyed after an encounter with the adventurers. Utilizing the enchanted chest that Relantaril made, the Order of the Eye of the Mages Guild had dispatched mages into the realm to recover an obscure relic known as the Nightlight, which was in fact an artifact that belonged to Sheogorath, which had strangely manifested in the Crowswood from the unforeseen effects of the plane meld during this time. Nocturnal had become a member of something known as the Triad, along with the Daedric Princes Clavicus Vile and Mafala. The Triad are the group of Daedric Princes who did not endorse the Cold Harbor Compact, as they did not wish to start a Daedric war of sorts. Sometime in the early years of the Second Era, Clavicus Vile, Mafala, and Nocturnal devised a plot to abduct the heart of Transparent Law, the object that acts as the stone to the Crystal Tower in the Somerset Isles. They had made a pact with a sea sload named Katora, with the use of powerful possessive mind magic to make Iachesis, the leader of the Sigillah Order at the time, pilfer the heart of Transparent Law. Iachesis was able to outsmart this scheme, and was able to seal the heart within his very being. By the 583rd year of the Second Era, Nocturnal, Mafala, and Clavicus Vile learned of this, and managed to kill Iachesis. Later, Nocturnal had turned against Mafala and Clavicus Vile by taking the heart for herself. This is when she tackled to overtake the Crystal Tower solely, but with the help of the Soulless One and the Sigillah Order, along with Clavicus Vile and Mafala who were betrayed by Nocturnal, and a champion sent by Meridia, the divine and holy power of the Dawnbreaker was enough to dispel Nocturnal and restored the heart of Transparent Law to the Crystal Tower.